The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew and freshly cut grass. Alex took a deep breath, stretching as he stepped onto the porch, his golden retriever, Max, bounding excitedly at his feet. Max had been with him for 5 years, his most loyal companion, his family. Their morning routine was simple, yet sacred. A long walk through the quiet neighborhood, a stop at the small park where Max could run free, and then back home for breakfast. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that day. But looking back, Alex would realize the signs were there. As they strolled along the familiar path, Max tugged at his leash, eager to chase after a squirrel. Alex chuckled, letting him lead the way. He didn't notice the black SUV parked across the street. He didn't see the shadowed figure lingering by the park's entrance. He was too caught up in the simple joys of the morning. How the sun reflected off Max's fur, the rhythmic sound of his paws against the pavement. At the park, Alex unclipped the leash, and Max bolted forward, tail wagging, barking in excitement. Alex watched with a smile, hands in his pockets, unaware that someone else was watching too. Someone who had been waiting. It happened fast. One moment Max was running across the field, ears perked, nose to the ground. The next, a man in a dark hoodie appeared out of nowhere, moving with eerie precision. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Something felt off. Then, before he could process what was happening, the man whistled. A sharp, deliberate sound. Max froze. His ears twitched, and for a second he hesitated. The man took a step closer. "Max!" Alex called, his voice edged with sudden panic. Max turned his head toward Alex, confusion flickering in his deep brown eyes. That's when the man made his move, lunging forward with a leash in his hand, reaching for Max's collar. Alex sprinted across the field. "Hey!" His voice rang out, cutting through the quiet morning. The man flinched but didn't stop. He grabbed at Max, who barked furiously, twisting away. Adrenaline flooded Alex's veins. He was almost there, just a few more steps. But then, the SUV's engine roared to life. The realization struck him like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some random guy. This was planned. Max yelped as the man yanked him by the collar, dragging him toward the vehicle. Alex lunged, grabbing the man's arm, shoving him back with everything he had. The man stumbled, caught off guard, but recovered quickly. His expression was hidden under the hood, but Alex saw something chilling in his stance. Confidence. Like he had done this before. Alex barely had time to react before another figure emerged from the SUV's passenger seat. A second man, bigger, stronger, and worse. He was armed. The barrel of a gun glinted in the morning sun. Alex's stomach dropped. "Let him go," he growled, his fists clenched. The man holding Max smirked, tightening his grip. Max was whimpering, now struggling, but the fight was draining out of him. Then just like that, the second man spoke. A single chilling sentence. "Walk away. This isn't just about your dog." The words sent a bolt of ice down Alex's spine. He took a shaky breath, his mind racing. This wasn't a random dog napping. It wasn't some cruel prank. This was something much, much bigger. And for the first time, Alex realized they weren't just after Max. They were after him, too. Hey, real quick. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. All right, let's keep going. Alex's hands trembled as he slammed his front door shut, his pulse still hammering in his ears. Max was gone, stolen right in front of him, dragged into that black SUV while he stood there, powerless. The weight of it sank deep into his chest. Like a stone, he could still hear the growl of the engine, the flash of those tinted windows speeding away. The memory clawed at him, burning into his mind. His dog wasn't just taken. He was targeted. Alex's breath was ragged as he paced the living room. He needed to think, to act. He grabbed his phone, fingers shaking, and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? My dog was just stolen. 2 men, black SUV, one of them had a gun, Alex said, trying to steady his voice. We'll send an officer to take a report. A report. That's all? He clenched his jaw. He didn't have time for paperwork. Hanging up, he forced himself to retrace the events. Why Max? There were plenty of dogs in the park. Why had they come for him? Then he saw it. A piece of folded paper, half crushed under his shoe, his stomach tightened. He didn't remember dropping anything. Slowly he bent down and picked it up, unfolding it with stiff fingers. The message was short. Too short. And far too personal. Stay out of this, or next time it won't just be the dog. Alex's blood ran cold. His eyes flicked across the room, suddenly aware of how quiet it was, how exposed he felt. Someone had left this for him, someone who knew where he lived. His mind raced. This wasn't just a dog napping. This was a warning. His grip tightened around the note as he scanned the street from his window. The SUV was gone, but that didn't mean he wasn't being watched. Someone wanted to scare him. Someone wanted him to back off. But from what? Heart-pounding, he went to his desk, yanking open drawers. There had to be something, anything that could explain why this was happening. He found nothing but old bills, scattered receipts, and he froze. Tucked beneath some papers was an old newspaper clipping, edges yellowed with time. He had almost forgotten about it. It was from 3 years ago, back when Max was just a puppy, back when Alex had found him. The headline sent a shiver through him. Illegal animal trafficking ring, busted. Key figures escape capture. Alex's stomach twisted. No. It couldn't be connected. Could it? He glanced at the photo beneath the headline, a grainy image of a police raid outside an abandoned warehouse. He had been there that day, purely by accident. Max had been there too. One of the rescued dogs. Was this about Max's past? About where he came from? A sharp knock at the door made him jump. His breath caught. Too fast for the police. He reached for the nearest object, a heavy flashlight, before creeping toward the peephole. A figure stood on his porch, face shadowed under a hood. Alex's pulse spiked. He wasn't expecting anyone. The figure slipped something under the door. Another note. Then, without a word, they turned and disappeared into the night. Alex hesitated before picking it up. His fingers trembled as he unfolded. The paper! You should have let them take the dog. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Alex sat at his kitchen table, both notes spread out in front of him. His mind raced. You should have let them take the dog. The words echoed in his head, laced with a threat he couldn't ignore. His fingers drummed anxiously against the table. The old newspaper clipping lay beside the notes, the blurred image of a warehouse raid from 3 years ago staring back at him. Max had been one of the rescued dogs. Could this really be connected? He had to find out. He grabbed his car keys and the newspaper, slipping both into his jacket. The only lead he had was that warehouse, the one where Max had been found. If there were any answers, they would be there. The old warehouse stood abandoned on the outskirts of town, hidden behind overgrown weeds and rusting fences. Alex parked a block away, his instincts screaming that this wasn't safe. The building had the eerie silence of something long forgotten. Except for the faint glow of a light coming from one of the broken windows, someone was inside. Keeping low, he crept toward the side entrance. The door was unlocked. Not a good sign. Slowly he pushed it open, the hinges groaning. The air inside was thick with dust and the faint, musty scent of something rotten. This place hadn't been empty for long. Then, a noise. Footsteps. Close. Alex spun, heart pounding. A figure emerged from the shadows. A woman. Her dark eyes locking onto him before he could react. "Alex Grayson?" she asked, her voice low, but firm. He took a step back. "Who's asking?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket. Alex tensed, ready to fight, until she pulled out a photo. His breath caught. It was a picture of Max. Taken recently. His stomach twisted. "Where did you get this?" The woman exhaled sharply. "You need to listen. You're in serious danger, more than you realize." Alex's pulse hammered in his ears. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then said, "Lena. I've been tracking these guys for months. The men who took your dog. They're part of something bigger. This isn't just about Max." Alex's fists clenched. "Then what is it about?" Lena glanced around, lowering her voice. "Max isn't just any dog, Alex. He was marked. You were never supposed to adopt him. A chill crawled up Alex's spine. What the hell are you talking about? She hesitated before saying, Max was part of an experiment. The words sent a shockwave through Alex's body. Lena continued. 3 years ago, a criminal network was running illegal animal testing, highly classified stuff. The authorities raided them, but some of their research vanished. And so did certain animals. Max was one of them. Alex felt his world tilt. You're saying my dog was part of a project that some very dangerous people want back? His mind reeled. This couldn't be real. Max was just Max, a goofy, loving retriever, not some experiment. Then Lena grabbed his wrist, her expression grim. We need to leave. Now. Alex stiffened. Why? She didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head toward the ceiling. Alex followed her gaze. His stomach dropped. A small, red blinking light near the rafters. A camera. They weren't alone. Someone was watching, and they knew he was here. Alex's mind was racing as he and Lena sped down the empty highway. The warehouse was behind them, but the danger wasn't. Someone had been watching, tracking them. Lena gripped the steering wheel, her expression tense. We can't go back to your place. They know who you are now. Alex clenched his fists. Then where the hell do we go? She hesitated. Then, I know someone who can help. Alex turned to her. Who? A contact of mine. Used to work on the inside before he flipped. He knows how these people operate. Alex eyed her warily. He didn't trust easily, but at this point, he had no choice. Lena pulled off the main road, taking a winding path through the outskirts of the city. They stopped outside a run-down motel, its flickering neon sign barely hanging on. Stay sharp, she muttered as they stepped inside. A man was waiting in the dimly lit room. Tall, built like a fighter. His eyes flicked to Alex, then to Lena. You shouldn't have brought him here, the man said. His voice was flat. Alex's stomach tightened. Who the hell is this? Lena exhaled. Alex, meet Marcus. He used to work security for the people who took Max. Marcus folded his arms. And I told you before? I'm done with this. Lena didn't back down. They have his dog, Marcus, and they're coming for him too. Marcus let out a slow breath, rubbing his temple. Then he motioned for them to sit. This isn't just about your dog, Alex, he said, his voice lowering. The people after you, they've been cleaning up loose ends from their old operation. He pointed at Alex, were never supposed to have Max, and now they're making sure no one finds out what he really is. Alex's skin crawled. And what exactly is he? Before Marcus could answer, the room exploded with movement. The door burst open. Black-clad figures swarmed in, weapons raised. Alex barely had time to react before a heavy boot slammed into his chest, sending him sprawling. His vision blurred as he hit the floor, gasping for air. A pair of gloved hands yanked him up, shoving him against the wall. His head spun, but through the haze, he saw Lena struggling against two men. Then he saw Marcus, standing still, not fighting. The air in Alex's lungs turned ice cold. You set us up, he breathed. Marcus didn't deny it. His expression was unreadable, but his silence was enough. One of the masked men stepped forward, pulling off his hood. A familiar face. Alex's stomach dropped. The man from the park, the one who tried to take Max. Mr. Alex? The man said smoothly. I warned you to stay out of this. Alex's blood boiled. Where's my dog? The man smirked. Safe? For now? Lena growled, still struggling against her captors. You're making a mistake. The man ignored her. His cold, piercing gaze stayed on Alex. I think it's time you and I had a conversation. Alex's jaw tightened. He was trapped, helpless, but not broken. His eyes flicked to Lena, to Marcus, to the gun holstered on one of the masked men's belts. He just needed one opening, 1 second to turn this around, and when it came, he wouldn't hesitate. Not this time. Alex's pulse was a war drum in his ears. They had Max, they had set him up, and now he was out of time. The moment Marcus and the others had dragged him into that ambush, Alex knew he couldn't trust anyone but himself. But that didn't mean he was giving up. He had managed to escape. Barely. A well-timed scuffle, a stolen gun, and sheer desperation had given him the chance to break free. Now, bruised and running on pure adrenaline, he stood outside a heavily guarded compound on the city's outskirts. This was it, the place where they were keeping Max. Lena crouched beside him in the shadows. She had gotten out too, just minutes, after him proving she was on his side, at least for now. "You're insane," she whispered. "This place is a fortress." Alex's jaw clenched. "Then I'll just have to break through it." He had pieced together bits of information from Marcus before everything went sideways. Max wasn't just being held hostage, he was bait. They wanted Alex to come for him, and Alex was going to do exactly that, but on his terms. They moved through the darkness, navigating through blind spots between security cameras. The compound was massive, a repurposed factory surrounded by tall fences and armed guards. Alex's fists tightened around the silenced pistol he had stolen. He hated guns, but tonight he needed every advantage. Lena took down one of the guards near a side entrance, quick and efficient. Alex dragged the body into the shadows before moving in. The inside was worse than he expected. Bright fluorescent lights, metal cages, the stench of chemicals. Alex's stomach churned. This wasn't just about Max. There were other dogs here. Caged, frightened, test subjects. He clenched his fists. These people were still experimenting, still torturing animals. He had been right all along. Max wasn't just stolen. He was being reclaimed. A distant whimper snapped him back. "Max?" Alex moved fast, weaving through the corridors until he reached a large glass room, and there he was. Max was inside, strapped to a metal table, his eyes wide and scared. Electrodes were attached to his body, and monitors beeped softly. Rage boiled in Alex's chest. He reached for the door. Locked. Lena cursed under her breath. "We need a keycard." Alex's mind raced. They had to move fast. Then a voice from behind made his blood turn to ice. "You really don't listen, do you?" "Marcus." Alex spun, gun raised, but Marcus was already aiming at him. And he wasn't alone. More guards stepped out from the shadows, guns pointed at both him and Lena. The realization hit Alex like a freight train. They let him get this far. They wanted him here. And now, he was right where they needed him. Marcus smirked. "You walked right into it." Alex's heart pounded, but he kept his gun steady. There had to be a way out. Marcus stepped forward. "Let me guess. You thought this was just about your dog? About saving some poor rescue animal?" He laughed. "Alex, you're part of something much bigger." Alex gritted his teeth. "I don't give a damn about your conspiracy. I just want my dog." Marcus tilted his head. "Oh, you still don't get it." He nodded toward Max. "He's not just bait, Alex. He's the key." Alex's breath caught. "What?" Marcus gestured toward the monitors. "Max isn't just any dog. He's the last of the project's successful test subjects. His DNA, his biology, it's worth more than you can imagine." Alex felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. Max wasn't just stolen. He was valuable, and these people would never let him go. Marcus sighed. "You had your chance to walk away, but since you're here—" He snapped his fingers. Guards moved in. Alex's mind went into overdrive. He had seconds to act. Then, a sudden explosion rocked the compound. The lights flickered. Alarms blared. Confusion erupted. Lena took the opening, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon and firing at the glass. It shattered. Alex lunged forward. He had one shot at getting Max out alive, and he wasn't going to waste it. The air was thick with smoke and chaos. The explosion had thrown the entire compound into disarray, alarms blaring, red warning lights flashing like the pulse of a dying beast. Alex didn't have time to think, only to act. Max was still strapped to the table, his frantic eyes locking onto Alex's. He was scared, confused, but alive. Alex sprinted toward him, but a bullet whizzed past his ear, forcing him to drop behind. A metal crate. Marcus was still standing, gun in hand, unfazed by the chaos. "You don't get it, do you?" Marcus shouted over the noise. "This isn't just about the dog." It's about what he means. You take him and you destroy everything we've built. Alex peeked over the crate, his blood boiling. Good. He fired, not at Marcus, but at the overhead gas pipe. The bullet struck true. A jet of fire erupted from the rupture, engulfing the space between them. Marcus cursed, stumbling backward, shielding his face from the heat. Alex took the opening. He leaped over the crate and rushed to Max, ripping the electrodes off his fur. Max whined, his body weak but responsive. Alex scooped him into his arms. Just as Marcus recovered, his gun raising, bang! Alex flinched, expecting pain, but it wasn't his bullet. It was Lena's. Marcus staggered, gripping his shoulder, blood blooming through his shirt. Lena stood at the doorway, gun smoking. "Didn't see that coming, did you?" she muttered. Alex didn't wait. He bolted toward her. Max clutched against his chest. More guards poured in, their weapons raised, but the fire had spread, creating a wall of heat between them and the only exit. Marcus, bleeding but still standing, gritted his teeth. "You won't make it out of here alive, Alex." Alex locked eyes with him, his jaw tight. "Watch me." Then he turned and ran. The corridors were a maze of smoke and collapsing metal. Alex's lungs burned as he sprinted toward the exit. Max whimpered in his arms, his body weak but his heart pounding against Alex's chest. Lena was right behind him. "We need to—" A gunshot rang out. Lena's body jerked. She gasped and stumbled forward. Alex turned just in time to catch her. Marcus stood at the end of the hallway, blood dripping from his shoulder. Gun still aimed. "You should have listened," Marcus growled. Lena clutched her side, her breath shallow. "Go!" she choked out. Alex's mind screamed at him to fight, to finish this, but Max needed him. They had to get out. With one last glance at Marcus, he hoisted Lena over his shoulder, carrying her toward the exit. The entire compound was collapsing. The moment they burst through the doors. Cool night air hit Alex's face. They were out. The building groaned behind them, flames consuming it from the inside. Then, boom! The compound exploded in a fireball of destruction. The force threw them forward, Alex shielding Max with his body as they hit the ground. Everything went silent. For a moment, Alex didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, a weak lick on his cheek. Max. Alex's eyes flew open. He gasped for air, rolling onto his back. Max was there, alive, staring at him with tired but trusting eyes. Alex exhaled shakily, running a hand through Max's fur. "You okay, buddy?" Max let out a small, tired bark. Lena groaned beside him, pressing a hand to her wound. "That was insane." Alex let out a breathless laugh, his body aching. "Yeah, but we made it. For the first time in what felt like forever." Max was safe. But as Alex looked at the burning ruins of the compound, he knew this wasn't over. Somewhere in the flames, Marcus had vanished, and Alex had a feeling he'd see him again. Alex sat in his dimly lit apartment, his body aching from the fight but his mind sharper than ever. Max was safe. The compound had been reduced to ashes, and yet it didn't feel over, because it wasn't. Lena was in the other room, patching up her wound. They had barely made it out, and though Alex owed her his life, a nagging feeling had been eating away at him. Something was still missing. He pulled out the stolen files from the compound, flipping through them. Max's name was there. A list of experiments, test subjects, failed and successful projects, and then his own name. Alex's heart stopped. His fingers tightened around the page as his eyes darted across the words. He wasn't just some random guy who adopted a stray dog. He had been monitored, tracked. Someone had wanted him to end up with Max. Someone had set this up years ago. A sick feeling crawled up his spine as he turned the page, only to find a photo. His father. Alex's breath caught. His father had died when he was a teenager. He barely remembered him, but here he was, standing next to Marcus. The past hit him like a truck. His father had worked in biological research before his sudden death. What if it wasn't an accident? He barely heard Lena walk in. "You're shaking," she said quietly. Alex swallowed hard, shoving the file toward her. "Tell me everything." Lena hesitated, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed. You weren't supposed to find out like this. His blood ran cold. You knew. She closed her eyes briefly. I suspected. Alex's hands clenched into fists. Betrayal. Again. Why didn't you tell me? She exhaled. Because the truth is bigger than you realize? She motioned to the files. Your father helped create the program. He thought it was for medical research, but when he found out what they were actually doing, he tried to shut it down. Alex's jaw tightened. And they killed him. Lena nodded. And covered it up. But before they did, he did one last thing. Her eyes flicked to Max. Alex's breath caught. He saved him. Lena gave a small nod. Your father smuggled Max out of the program. He knew they'd come looking, so he arranged for him to end up with someone who'd keep him safe. Alex stared at Max, his mind reeling. That someone was me. Lena's voice was soft. It was always supposed to be you. The realization hit him like a wrecking ball. His father had died protecting Max, and now, years later, those same people had come back to reclaim what they lost. It had never been random. His entire life had been tangled in this conspiracy before he even knew it. Alex inhaled sharply, shoving the files into a bag. We need to end this. Lena watched him. How? Alex turned to his laptop, his fingers flying over the keyboard. By exposing everything. Within minutes, he was uploading every document, every classified report, names, faces, crimes, and then finally, a video. Alex looked into the camera, his voice steady but full of rage. They tried to take my dog. They thought they could erase the truth. But they were wrong. He hit upload. And the world was about to know everything. The video went viral overnight. Alex watched as the world finally saw the truth. The classified experiments, the corruption, the names of the people who had tried to erase it all. News outlets scrambled to report the scandal. Protests erupted. Arrests followed. The organization that had taken Max was finished, but justice didn't erase the scars. Alex stood on the edge of a quiet park, watching Max sniff at the grass, his tail wagging slowly. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the trees. For the first time in weeks there was peace. Lena had disappeared, slipping into the shadows as soon as the truth was out. Alex wasn't surprised. She had her own demons to chase. Marcus, however, was still missing. That unsettled him. The fire had consumed the compound, but Alex knew a man like Marcus wouldn't go down that easily. He exhaled, kneeling beside Max, running his fingers through the dog's golden fur. We did it, buddy, he murmured. Max looked up at him, eyes full of trust, the same unwavering loyalty he had given Alex since the day they met. Alex swallowed hard. I almost lost you. Max nudged his hand as if to say, I'm still here. Alex chuckled softly. Yeah, you are. But things would never be the same. He had gone from an ordinary man to someone hunted, tested, betrayed, and even though the organization had crumbled, something told him this wasn't over. A cold breeze swept through the park. Max suddenly stiffened. His ears perked up, his eyes locking onto something in the distance. Alex followed his gaze. A man in a dark coat stood near the tree line, watching. The moment Alex noticed, the man turned and walked away. Alex's stomach tightened. Someone was still watching. He clenched his fists, a slow exhale leaving his lips. Maybe the war was over, or maybe it was just beginning. Either way, Alex and Max were ready. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the next part, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated. See you in the next one. Your support means the world.